Good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to another therapeutic meeting at Light in the Shire Spiritist group. My name is Fran Diogo, and I'm going to take you through our therapeutic talk about the topic mediumship. So we consider this talk extremely important to consider, to study, to reflect on, according to the Spiritist body of knowledge, because understanding our spiritual mechanisms, our connection between the mind, the body, the soul, or the spirit, helps us understand how also we can connect to other souls, to other mechanisms of thought, emotions, and how in reality we are all interconnected, but that has an impact in ourselves and in those around us. So this mechanism of mediumship has an important role in understanding health in the third millennium. When we consider how health starts with the mental health or has a direct impact on mental health and vice versa. So mediumship explains a lot of these mechanisms when we consider this constant exchange of thoughts, emotions, and connections that we're making with energies around us and what kind of energies we are emitting as well. So Spiritism, being the body of knowledge that comprises the scientific, the moral, and the philosophical teachings, uses the scientific method or the rational thinking of things to provide us unprecedented information about our spiritual nature. So this is what Allan Kardec has done. And we understood from the fundamental teachings of Spiritism how we are, first and foremost, spiritual beings that are eternal. So our eternal characteristics, amongst other aspects, like the ability to exchange mental impressions, the ability to connect, to capture information from the spiritual realm, which is basically how the Spiritist philosophy got brought to us, with the teachings of the spirits being given to us through mediums. Allan Kardec just did the work of codifying it and helping us understand what fundamental information was being given and how we could best study it and understand the spiritual phenomena. So, of course, these basic tenets of Spiritism, when we understand about reincarnation, the existence of a superior intelligence that governs life, our ability to constantly exchange information with the spiritual realm, are all key to understanding why we can be sensitive to influences of the spiritual realm, the so-called mediums, or we'll be discussing the key concept of what medium is, or our mediumship is as well. But amongst the information that we have learned from Kardec and the spirits, around the 1940s, a spiritual author called André Luiz has given us a lot of information through the medium that was quite well known in Brazil, called Chico Xavier. So André Luiz has given us a lot of information, as well as Emmanuel, about the mechanisms of our minds and how this connection with like-minded souls in both realms of life, physical and spiritual, has this co-creating capacity connected to us. And what we create resonates with some other minds and so forth. So to understand how significant the topic is, we can consider that one of the 5 books in Allan Kardec's codification is called the Medium's Book, that was given to us in 1861. And it explains everything with this mediumship phenomena. So if you haven't yet had a chance to read the Medium's Book, I do recommend that you do that, because some of the information that we'll be talking about here today is deeply covered in the medium's book. So it is the go-to for mediumship understanding. So what is a medium? First, we just wanted to clarify that the medium is the being, is the individual who serves as a point of union to the spirits, that they might easily communicate with men. So communicate with the incarnate spirit. So there's an element of a sensitivity to being able to capture those impressions in the spiritual world. So André Luiz actually describes in the book Mechanisms of Mediumship this law of mental field that basically explains how we are constantly emitting thoughts that are shaping the energy around us. So through our thoughts, we create our mental aura, what we can call it, is what they call the mental, looks like a mental canvas that projects what we're thinking, how we're feeling, and the content of our thoughts is basically maximized in the spiritual realm so we can understand what others are thinking or feeling. So there's no masks when you are in the spiritual realm. You can actually see what other people are thinking. And of course, people of the same vibrational level as yours. And that's how the connections, the interrelations can happen. So in this book, André Luiz told us that our mental interaction can be triggered in a process of creation from actions such as reading a page, reading a book, consulting a book, engaging in conversation. So the type of mental elements that we are generating from the reading, the type of reading, something that we're watching, in these days, if we consider that there's a lot more elements that provides us information and context that change our emotional way of dealing with whatever it is that we're getting in contact with, whatever we're feeling, when we are engaging in social media, when we are watching a series, watching a video, listening to music. All this triggers this process of creation from our minds. And the interest focus on a subject puts us in spontaneous correlation with incarnate and discarnate intelligence that might be interested in the same thing and harmonize. So through the mental loads we have accumulated, from many existences and from what we are accumulating based on what we are constantly reading about or things that interest us, we transmit in form of pictures and energetic sparks this connection. So we are co-creating something, and then we have the connection with others of the same vibrational level, and I guess spirits that are interested in the same topics as us. So our minds are like these cell phones that when we open the Wi-Fi connection, we see, oh, there's this Wi-Fi here. Do I want to connect with this? And then we can select what we connect with or we don't. So in that sense, we are all mediums because we are constantly creating things. When we think, when we read a page, when we engage in different things about our cognitive and emotional aspects of our being, and we get in symphony, we basically harmonize with incarnate or discarnate minds that are on the same vibrational level. So that's basically why there's so much spiritist literature telling us how it is important for us to understand the quality of our thoughts, understand and observe what kind of thoughts we have, what are our patterns, what are our inner conversations, and what are the things that we're listening to, engaging in reading, and etc. Because that's one of the things that can create imbalance and can create, I guess, negative things in our emotional well-being, in our mental well-being. So basically, we'll be trying to talk a little bit about the complex, I guess, interactions about the different kinds of mediumship so we can actually have a broader understanding. But again, because our time is limited, we do recommend that you go and research about this further. I'll be sharing some links when we post this video so you can actually know where you can go if you want to read more information about the different aspects of mediumship over there. So the introduction of the Spirits book actually has a lot of good information there. So it says basically that communications of spirits and men, so spirits in the spiritual world, men that are incarnate, are either occult or ostensible. The occult communications are made through the good or bad influence they exert on us without us being aware of it. It is our duty to distinguish by the exercise of our judgment between the good and the bad inspirations that we might be receiving, that are thus brought to bear upon us. And he also discerns here, the spirits explain, that the ostensible communications can take place by means of writing, so automatic writing, speech, or other physical manifestations, but usually through the intermediary of mediums who serve as their instruments. So there are people which physical organization has been organized for this lifetime, providing this sensitivity to hear, to see, to perceive through intuitions, and there's different types of intuitions as well, and through sonambulism, mechanical writing. So we'll be going through the different types of mediumship, but just so you understand, our bodies, our physical bodies have to be prepared in a certain way. So before we reincarnate, before we are given this mission or this task of using the mediumship, mediumistic abilities that we are given to do something purposeful, we need to have this physical organization organized, planned before we reincarnate. So there's some mechanisms that science is still trying to understand, but for example, there's a connection between the pineal gland and some types of mediumship. The pineal gland produces the melatonin hormone, which is the hormone that helps us deactivate some parts of our brain activity when we rest, when we sleep. So we have to go into a certain level of trance to let go of the control of some of our mechanisms of the mind and the body, so the other spirits can utilize that connection with our minds, with our physical bodies, through our brain that was equipped to do that, so we can be mediums and be these intermediaries that the spirits were explaining just then. So just so you know, there's a lot of research into this on the neurophysical side of the mediumship experiences. So if you want to read more about it, we know that between 1973 and 2021, there has been at least 55 citations of mediumship amongst scientific papers published via PubMed, the National Library of Medicine. So there is this growing field of medicine and spirituality, and renowned scientists that actually are investigating these aspects of mediumship further. And we do encourage that you look up their work. So I'll just mention a few names here. So there's Dr. Julia Fernandez Perez, Dr. Alexandria Moreira Almeida, Dr. Andrew Newberg, Dr. Gary Schwartz, Dr. Décio Landoli Jr., Dr. Sergio Augusto, and there are many more. But if you want to do a quick search on the PubMed library, by all means do this. We'll share some links as well for some research, but there is a spiritual movement of medicine and psychologists, like, people in the research, but also in the health industry, that are investigating this phenomena further. So if you are interested in that, please do research some more. So I'll go through the different types of mediumship, from the most common to the most, I guess, the ones that are more uncommon. And then we can understand and discuss it a little bit further. So intuition. When we receive ideas or instructions from the spiritual realm with an emotion attached to them, this is what we call intuition. So there's always an emotional and affective content when we receive an intuition. So, that gut feeling that we have sometimes about things, it is described that this can be either an intuition that's sourced from our own spirit. So because of course we have lived many lives, we have our own experiences to draw from, our soul, that they call this mnemic intuitions, because it comes from our own selves, but from this part of our consciousness that we are not in touch with constantly, but it gives us this, this doesn't feel right, or this inner intuition is something that is considered a mediumship kind of type of intuition. So we all have it. That's the most common one. So according to the author Zeus Wantui, Allan Kardec was not an ostensive medium, as an example, but he had access to intuition, and all the knowledge that he had accumulated over many existences was assessed when he was actually putting together the work of Spiritism. So he did contribute with some of the knowledge that he had, plus, of course, the knowledge of the spirits that were passed on to him, just as an example. Another type of intuition is the mediumistic intuition. So this can be impacted by telepathic action, when spirits will place a hand in our frontal force center or in our solar plexus, the heart force center, and they can transform the input of energy that will travel via our central nervous system and influence the neural brain structures. And then they can give us ideas. And then through that mediumistic intuition, that's when some mediums will be able to speak on behalf of the spirit that's transmitting the idea, because that's a more sensitive type of intuition. So then the medium will hear in its head the words, or it will be, the spirits can be able to then control the speech of the medium if we're talking about the intelligent medium effect of speech, right? So the intuition mechanisms that we have is when we discern or have a premonition of things not related to rational thinking or analysis. We're not going back to thinking, and then we get to conclusions. This is when we receive this knowledge without doing the intellectual understanding and processing of it to get to that conclusion. So there's a few examples of this. So for example, when the incident of the Twin Towers in World Trade Center happened, a lot of people reported that they had kind of a premonition or an intuition that something was happening. And for some reason they were feeling out of sorts. Something held them back, or something made them not go through with the routine that they generally go, and therefore they didn't make it to work. Therefore they didn't get involved in the incident that they were not meant to be involved in. So sometimes the spiritual realm can use this sort of mechanism to warn us about things. So these premonitions can be messages that are being given to us by our spiritual friends. And I always like reminding this, and we had discussed this when we had the public meeting this week, we all have a spiritual mentor. We all have a spiritual guide that has been assigned to help us through this life. And they are the ones that are most connected to us, and they know us, they understand us. So they can give us positive intuitions to change certain things, to not suffer if you're open. And sometimes if you're very closed about something, when we are going through a tough time, they can actually influence someone that loves us to help us with advice that they can listen to or be sensitive to receiving. And then they feel that they have to talk to us about something, or they might have to give us this book, or, the conversations get started. And sometimes we are being an instrument of assisting someone or being assisted by someone who loves us. So we should really, really try to develop this relationship with our spiritual guides, spiritual mentors, because they are the ones that are the most interested in us having a happy life, overcoming our challenges, and etc. So again, a nice positive mechanism of mediumship that we can develop. So sight mediums are mediums who can capture images from the spiritual realm, and they can see them not with these physical eyes, but with their soul's abilities to see and perceive. So even with their eyes closed, they can actually see what's going on around them, perceive that reality. So again, this generally has to be done when you have a sensitivity, a physical sensitivity or disposition to do it. But there's different types. So some can do this when they're perfectly awake and they can just see the spirits or see the spiritual reality around them. Some have to go into a state of trance or somnambulism, as Kardec would explain. So the somnambulistic type of mediumship, like I said, is something that can be activated through the manipulation with spiritual energies through our pineal gland. And then we can easily go into that state of trance without necessarily going to sleep. And through that process, the spirit can then take over the control of, either our sight to show us something, or our speech to speak about something, or our mechanical writing. So the mechanical writing mediumship is probably the most rare, where the medium will go into the somnambulistic trance and will not necessarily have control over its hand, and then the spirits just write the message that they're trying to liaise with us without having the actual awareness of what the spirit's writing. And to test if this is the case, you can ask someone to read something and to be writing something else, because we cannot do that avert attention being divided to two mechanisms that are using the same part of the brain. So that's, an interesting fact, I guess, about that. And it is very rare. So generally, through this mediumistic intuition, people will receive the idea that they have to write about, and they are like co-aware of the influence of the spirit that's passing on the message through their hands and through their writing. Okay, so it's important to know that this principle that is manipulated by the spiritual realm is a property of the spiritual energy that allows the soul to realize things from a distance, to have this emancipation of the soul as well. So we are all connected to this physical body, but we have the ability to emancipate and perceive this spiritual reality around us. Some of us are just more sensitive to it and can do it with more ease. Some of us are not, I guess, trained. So mediumship is also a skill, and a medium that's very dedicated, disciplined in this life, and can actually control these mechanisms and control the moral evolution, and still stay in the path of good, as we know this is what we were here to do, can go to the next life and have that capacity that was developed. So everything that we develop as spirits stay with us through our many lives. And this is a great aspect of, I guess, understanding spiritism as well, that nothing that we learn is ever going to be lost. When we acquire a skill, when we acquire a virtue, a quality, a moral quality, it's ours, and it will be with us beyond this material life. It will be with us, through our future and our next lives, and so forth. So it is not the eyes, but the beams of the soul that extends further and exerts the action of this energy that is part of our beings. When we are seeing the spiritual reality, we are perceiving this spiritual reality. So yeah, there's a lot of people that might not necessarily know that they are mediums, but they are. So unnoticeably, since it's inherent to their own being, they think it's natural for them to see things, and they might not necessarily control it. And to be honest, in a lot of psychiatric hospitals, there might be a lot of people that, despite taking the medications necessary to control these so-called hallucinations, they won't go away, because it might be a spiritual reality around them. So that's one of the other things that they are so important, I guess, in terms of when we're trying to understand these mechanisms of the mind, body, soul, and health, like I just mentioned, because a lot of mistakenly considered mental health issues could be lack of control of mediumship, or the lack of the moral development of the medium that's leading it to be connected with ill spirits. So we consider that when people are, feeling uncomfortable because of a spiritual connection, it might be because there's a new spirit connected to them, and we will never know exactly the reasons. Everyone's reasons might be different, but it is, like I said at the beginning of our talk, something that the soul has to emit the vibration, has to be thinking about something, it has to be in synchrony with that like-minded spirit, or has to have a connection from a past life, something that happened. And we are understanding through spiritism that we're constantly trying to create balance where we might have created imbalance. So sometimes we're given the opportunity to restore balance in a relationship that we have, disrupted. And this temporary ill feeling and this temporary connection with a mind that might not have forgiven us for our mistakes and etc. is what is called in Spiritism obsessions. So one of the dangers of mediumship is having this sensitivity to perceiving a spiritual reality that's not so beautiful. If you look at our planet out there, if you look at our reality, we're still going through a moment of a lot of pain and transitions in our planet. So we are, according to Spiritism, still living a phase of trials and expiations. So we are essentially, like I said, trying to restore balance where we've taken it, where we disrupted. So there's a lot of disruption, a lot of things that are seemingly uncomfortable, and the psychosphere of the earth, the energies are a little dense at the moment, but it's part of this transition that we're going through, and we're only going to improve our level of morality and well-being based on the individual efforts to be better, to change, to not be falling into the traps of dysregulated passions and illusions and valuing things that are not necessarily the important things in life. So this is one of the things that Spiritism really leads us to understand more, and how to, I guess, feel better, make better choices about what we're thinking, what we're doing, who we are connecting with, learning to develop skills like forgiveness, kindness, gratitude, love, because essentially we are here to learn all these things. And the more we do, the more we practice this positive affect and positive qualities development, the more we are attuning with our higher self and these opportunities to be better. And we are connecting less and less with what's negative, and therefore we are connecting to good spirits, to spirits that are willing to do good the same way that we are, genuinely willing to do good. So these effects of the, I guess, imbalanced mediumship can create a lot of issues. But if we can use our sensitivities, if we can use the knowledge, the mechanisms that we understand better now with the information that's given to us, to do better, to make better choices for ourselves, for those around us, to help people understand the importance of positive thinking, meditation, clearing the mind, focusing on what's important, what helps us be good, and helping each other out, genuinely caring about those around us, developing this quality of love that we were, taught beautifully and exemplified by many, many great spirits that are coordinating the positive changes in our planet at the moment. Regardless of faith, we are going to be definitely walking towards that path of getting to a regenerative state where we feel better about who we are, what we're doing, and creating this better reality for everyone. So I hope, within the realm of basic mediumship understanding and giving you some ideas and where to find relevant information, this has been a good start. So I just wanted to wrap up saying, why real mediumship is such a precious skill, and it increases in value the more we are employing it well towards good, and the more we can exercise it with discipline, with self-discipline, with self-knowledge, and with moral and material selflessness. So Spiritism is adamant in saying that we do not charge for mediumistic services, because this was a skill that was given to us to be used in the service to others and to ourselves to be better. So the more we do use it for good, the more we are going to be helping each other out and fulfilling our mission with this skill, this beautiful thing that was given to us as a gift. And we all do have it to a level, to a more developed level or undeveloped level, but we all do have it. So we have to try and make the most of it. And the other thing is, how can we better understand this connection between the Spiritist etiological model for mental disorders considering these discarnate influences, of ill spirits, and how the trauma we might have experienced in previous lives might be creating issues that we experience today. So when we think about this, we can actually use the Spiritist teachings, go to a Spiritist meeting to hear something that will help us renew ourselves, to receive the magnetic healing that can help us balance our physical bodies, but also our spiritual bodies, to help bring balance to where we need. And the understanding of how to pray, to use our minds to connect with like-minded, positive, and good spirits that will help us feel better, do better, is so important. So our efforts to live according to the ethical principles that we learn is so, so important, and to use all the resources available so we can be the best versions of we can be. Thank you so much for listening in. If you have any questions, we are more than happy to hear them. So please feel free to message us. And I look forward to seeing you all again in our next therapeutic meeting. Thank you so much. Much peace. And I hope you stay well and positive. Thank you.